and she titles it COD streamer says some hospitals are valid military targets. You can see, like, I opened the message. Hey man, sorry about, you know, wasting your time basically. Something came up, you know, let's reschedule. And then this fucking guy, for like internet points, I guess, he tweets out, Hutch dodged our conversation. Like, they're so goddamn dishonest, these guys. His thinking that we are already at rock bottom, I think is really myopic. I think this guy struggles with imagination.
Like, there is no solution other than, like, yeah, building a working class party, building working class power, having a revolution.
When I imagine a revolution in America, my imaginings horrify me, because it would not be a leftist revolution. But I've been in a bit of a shit mood the last probably like week, you guys. My already pretty low opinion of the progressive slash lefty sort of like politics space, my already low opinion went even lower. I don't want to generalize too much. I'll keep it specific to like individuals, but there were multiple individuals that were posting about me saying the most just unhinged, insane, untrue shit. And it got to me. It really got to me. I was just super pissed like the last few days. First of all, Denims did a stream like 4 days ago. There was a clip of mine that made the rounds. And it was a clip from a stream last week, or maybe the week before. But in one of those streams, I talked about the legality of bombing a hospital in war. And I think what we were doing, I think we were reacting to one of the conversations that Ethan and it might have been the debate that Ethan and Hassan had. And at one point, Hassan in the debate talked about how it was a war crime to bomb a hospital, which generally speaking is true. However, there are narrow exceptions. For example, anybody can just look this up. These are in the Geneva Conventions, not particularly difficult to find. Basically what happens is you have facilities and buildings like hospitals that enjoy protected status, so long as they are, I don't know if there's some sort of official sort of certification or designation, but as long as a hospital is operating as a hospital, treating wounded, treating sick people, then it enjoys protections from being bombed. That's pretty, I mean, I feel like most people intuitively understand this, that it would be a war crime just to bomb a hospital arbitrarily, right? However, laid out in the Geneva Conventions, they explain what those narrow exceptions are. And they're pretty specific things. So if you house able-bodied militants in your hospital, you have now made that hospital open to being bombed. Now legal to bomb that hospital. And in fact, it's a war crime to put military age militants, fighting age militants or whatever, active soldiers, like you can't house them in a hospital. Similarly, you can't use the hospital to stage any kind of attacks. So if you're firing rockets from a hospital, you lose that protected status. And it's not a war crime to bomb that hospital. And if you stockpile weapons in a hospital, you can lose that protection. And this just, I mean, I feel like all you have to do is like think it through for like a couple seconds and you'll understand why these exceptions exist, because it's totally unworkable to designate any building as just permanently off limits. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. Otherwise, if we take that to an extreme hypothetical, America could, for example, it's like a cheat. Yeah, it'd be like a cheat code for war, right? Like it's like putting the God code in, the Konami code or whatever. You know, America, we could move all of our infrastructure, our military infrastructure into hospitals all over the country. We could nuke Canada and Mexico, and they would not be legally allowed to retaliate as long as we stored all of our weapons and military infrastructure in hospitals. They just couldn't. It doesn't work for obvious reasons. And so whatever. I talked about that on the stream, and then Denims goes live, and she, first of all, she calls me a Call of Duty commentator, which is pretty funny. Chat, when was the last time we played Call of Duty? I think it was like the first 2 days of Black Ops 6. The first 2 days I think we played, and then we got bored. But yeah, she goes live and she titles it COD streamer says some hospitals are valid military targets. And then there were a couple other like lefty accounts, bigger accounts, or if not big accounts, accounts that get a lot of traction that were assigning me like the least charitable position on this thing. And so I had people accusing me of blanketly co-signing every single hospital bombing that IDF has done throughout this entire conflict, or implying that I don't think any hospitals should have protections. But just like the most dishonest, just blatantly dishonest interpretation of what I said, which is just a true thing. Like what I said was just true. In fact, it's kind of topical this week because a couple days ago, Israel claims that they killed the head of Hamas's military wing, who was the half brother of that one Sinwar guy that they killed. And do you want to know where they bombed him? It was under a fucking hospital. Allegedly, Hamas's like head of the military wing that they just killed was sheltering underneath the hospital. So there's no question that Hamas does this. And what I wonder is just like, how come they don't have any smoke for Hamas when they do that? It's crazy to me. It's just crazy. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult to sort of imagine why that's fucked up. Budhar says, I've given up trying to understand and argue with these people. I'd rather never interact in that space again, to be honest. Better for your sanity. You know what, man? Like, I've been engaging in politics online for like 10 years. I've dealt with some really toxic communities. I've interacted with thousands of Trump supporters throughout the years. I swear to God, this particular group of people, these people that I'm talking about here, they are the worst. They are actually the most aggressive, the most toxic. I would argue that they're even more dishonest than MAGA. Like MAGA, I would say generally are too, like, listen, let's just call a spade here, okay? Like, generally speaking, the diehard MAGA supporters are too dumb for it to be a lie. Do you know what I mean? There's a problem of ignorance. More than dishonesty, I would say that with MAGA, there's a problem of ignorance. These people here that we're talking about, these, I don't know what you want to call them, whatever you want to call them, fringe lefties, we might call them. They are willfully dishonest, which I honestly think is worse. Their numbers are much smaller than MAGA, so they just don't pose the same kind of threat. But in terms of the willful dishonesty, I think these people are for sure worse than MAGA. For sure. I set up a conversation that I was going to have with a creator on Twitch by the name of To Cinemarxism. As the name suggests, he is a leftist, which is fine. That's fine. I feel like I want to be able to have conversations with leftists without it getting just totally insane. Just one time can I have that happen? Please, for the love of God. Literally just one time, I want to have a conversation with a leftist and have it not spiral completely out of control, like right away. And so I had set up this conversation with this guy because like he had disagreed about, to be honest, guys, I don't even remember what this disagreement started as. I don't remember what we were even arguing about. I think it was about the Ethan Hassan Israel stuff, but either I broached it with him or he broached it with me to have a conversation over Discord while the stream is going. I have no problem doing that. And something came up. This was supposed to happen on Tuesday, and something just came up. Like I could no longer make it. And I reach out to this guy and I'm apologetic because like I value my time. So like, I don't like wasting anybody else's time. And so I genuinely apologize to the guy. I hit him up in the DMs and I was like, hey, sorry, we're going to have to do this another time. Something popped up that I can't wriggle out of. Is your schedule open the same time next week? And he goes, SMH, you're not available any other time this week. It's like the human mind cannot conceive of the possibility that I have other shit going on during the week. So immediately this guy gets pissy with me. I'm like, really? I mean, I've been doing content creation now for how many years? 16 years? I've had a lot of interactions with other creators. If you want to collaborate with other people, this happens a lot. Like you schedule something else comes up. It's not ideal when someone cancels, but it happens. It happens. This is just, we're all adults here. And so I'm immediately like, why the f would you SMH in this spot? Like, I don't know you, bro. And then he goes around and then this like little weasel. I shouldn't say that. I want this conversation to be normal. And I just want it to be fucking normal. You know what I mean? You know, you can see, I opened the message. Hey man, sorry about, you know, wasting your time basically. Something came up, you know, let's reschedule. And then this fucking guy for like internet points, I guess, he tweets out, Hutch dodged our conversation. Like they're so goddamn dishonest, these guys. Drives me insane. So I don't even know like if it's possible to have a productive conversation with this person. I mean, I'm still willing to do it, but I guess that'll happen next week. I have no problem like discussing ideas with people, but I just don't know, you know, like, is there anybody, like any leftists on social media that can have just normal conversations where we don't make all kinds of crazy assumptions about each other, where we don't draw completely unreasonable inferences from completely anodyne statements, you know, where we don't have to assign malice, and we just talk like normal people, for Christ's sakes? Just drives me insane. For what? For some internet points? To lie about like dodging a conversation so that people like a tweet? But it just got to me. And so like I took advantage of the fact that we did a bunch of sponsored streams last week, you know, made a little bit of money, and I was like, F it, I'm just gonna take a few days off. I don't need to swim in this shit. It really got to me. It really fucking got to me. It made me so black-pilled. Hutch just leaked DMs on Twitter to clear your name. No, I already did. I mean, I posted about it. It was like nothing. Like like whatever. And then I had people like defending him in my mentions that are like, wow, they were like, wow, bro, you're leaking DMs. That's kind of weird. I'm like, bro, he just lied about me. What do you expect me to do? Not show you the DM? I guess it's a wash because, you know, like we are building bridges with Kyle Kalinske recently, which is something I never thought I would say in a million years. We talked mad shit about Kyle Kalinske on this stream for a long time, but he got the homework. I think he recognizes just how uniquely dangerous Trump is. And I feel like he is reacting appropriately. Like the underpinnings of my current political philosophy right now they kind of revolve around the Republican Party. There's like a few things that I acknowledge as being just real. You know, the first thing is that the Republican Party is in its current form uniquely dangerous. They are uniquely dangerous. They are potentially fascistic. If we give these people super majorities in Congress, then they will do awful things. And so as such, my number one priority in the current moment, I'm doing triage. I'm not thinking about like, it just is what it is. I'm not thinking about Medicare for all right now. I'm not thinking about big, bold, progressive policy right now. There are other things that I think are way more pressing to focus on right now, like preventing Republicans from winning elections. So for me, that is of the highest consequence. There's nothing more important to me right now than stopping Republicans from winning elections. Not any kind of policy, nothing. Just like that has to be the number one goal. And so to that's the only thing I care about is winning elections. That's all I care about right now. It's not going to be like that forever, hopefully. If we can get out of this moment and if the Trump movement can lose a lot of steam and really prove to be so toxic that, you know, they can't really win elections, and maybe the Republican Party can move away from that and become like more normal. I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's possible at this point, but it just has to be the number one priority. We cannot let these guys win so many seats that they can just pass any bill they want. We certainly can't let them win enough seats that they could pass constitutional amendments, you know? Like, it's just, for me, I take the threat of fascism seriously. I don't think America is so special that we are immune to something like what happened in Germany in the fucking 30s. I don't think we're above that. I don't think we're better human beings. I think all human beings in all societies, it could happen to anyone. Anyways, so that's my philosophy. Let's take a look at this person's philosophy. And I want this to be a hinged critique. I don't want this to be like ad homs and get nasty with it. I just want to, you know, like, let's find a video where we can sort of surmise this person's political philosophy. So the last video Cinemarxism posted was a month ago, and it's called Bernie and AOC draw thousands, but towards what? Okay.
Okay, and for our main story tonight, we've been waiting for you guys. We were waiting. I started talking about it at the beginning of the stream, and then I said, you know what? I need to wait. I need to wait for the Hasanabi heads to come in here. I think today was do or die. I think today was a do or die moment. We had a moment today, and I was hopeful.
Mudhar says, I mean, it's similar to here in Canada, Hutch. I voted Liberal not because I agree with everything. I voted because of the threat to sovereignty here and voting against unneeded privatization. Just basic triage. The sort of leftists that we sparred with recently, Mudhar, their position is that the Democratic Party is maximally evil. I'm not sure, is it the Liberal Party in Canada? Is that what you call it? The Democratic Party is maximally evil, and therefore there was no meaningful difference between Kamala and Trump, because the Democrats are already maximally evil. Therefore, you know, burn it all down, basically, is what you arrive at.
At the beginning of the day, I was actually a little bit hopeful. I do think we are in a moment, especially with regards to the Democratic Party and any kind of like electoral national leftist movement, where we need leadership. We need people like AOC and Bernie. We specifically need these two people to make a clean break and really, really set a playing field that establishes the Democratic Party as a capitalist party that is not in the interest of the working people.
Okay, a couple things right away. So the first thing he's establishing here is he believes that AOC and Bernie need to basically form a new political party. And I guess his hope or expectation would be that the Democratic Party would ultimately fail and be absorbed by this new emergent anti-capitalist party. Okay.
And I want them to actually fight oligarchy and not funnel this progressive momentum that they're building into the Democratic Party. That is a part of the oligarchy.
The consequence of what he describes as a clean break, fracture within the party, this would be the consequence of that right here. That's what it looks like. That's what a clean break looks like. And so, you know, I guess I would want to ask him, like, do you embrace accelerationism? Is it your perspective that we should hasten the demise of the Republic and then speed up this sort of like socialist revolution that you imagine transpiring?
I actually have beef with him even saying oligarchy, because it's not, I mean, it is, but it's like, it's just capitalism. Call it what it is. We're saying oligarchy so that we don't say capitalism. Let's say oligarchy if you think it pulls better, whatever. This is not my biggest gripe, whatever. But I think it just kind of communicates a deeper thing, right? You guys told me last night that Hassan was going to be interviewing AOC and Bernie on stream. I said last night, wow, that's really interesting. This is a great moment. I hope he asks about a clean break.
I looked up the numbers. Unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of great data as far as how many people in the United States just fully self-identify as a Marxist or a Leninist or a Marxist-Leninist or a socialist. What we have are kind of very imprecise data points that suggest that younger people are open to the idea of socialism, but that could mean any number of things. That doesn't necessarily mean that the person thinks that the proletariat should rise up and do a revolution and, you know, like actual sort of Marxism. It could just mean like, hey, I just want free healthcare. I think the best numbers that I saw for people that straight up self-identify as a communist or as a socialist or as a Marxist is like 2%, 3%. And so either Cinemarxism doesn't really care about actual political power, or he has delusionally convinced himself that socialism is palatable to people outside of like a hyper online niche, which I haven't seen any evidence for that.
I hope we get answers and we can get more insight into where they are. Why the do these people continue trying to work within a party that actively works against them? They aren't tolerating Bernie and AOC. They are actively hindering them. Here's the interview. I found it.
Bernie Sanders and AOC in the building. You guys are about to go up and speak at another one of the rallies that you've been doing, the Fighting Oligarchy tour. I went to Japan recently, and I got both of you guys gifts. This one's for you. This is a Palestinian movement in Japan.
Thank you.
The Japanese Palestinian Solidarity Movement has hijacked planes. The Japanese Red Army, and like the Palestinian Solidarity Wing were
In 1973.
hijacking planes in solidarity with with Palestine in the 70s.
He seems to be implying that, you know, Japan are like radically supportive of Palestinian liberation, but he's citing something that happened 50 years ago when Hamas didn't even exist, when it was the PLO that was advocating for Palestinian liberation, a Marxist group. Okay.
So I don't know if he doesn't really go into what organization made that, but anytime I hear Palestinian Solidarity in Japan, I was like, oh shit.
And this is a little train for public transit. I have a Japanese Communist Party pin for you as well, but unfortunately,
Bernie playing with a little train.
And I checked out their headquarters. But what are you guys trying to?
Parties have gone away or changed in the U.S. before. Whigs, Federalists, and all that. Two parties aren't baked into the Constitution, though systemically, it is the thing right now in a theoretical world, acknowledging we probably aren't there yet. A third party could still caucus with Dems the same way as independents like Bernie do now. Democrats still less popular than Trump from the numbers I've seen. Have to see where that goes if Dems can get any wins. I mean, it's to be expected, I think, that a party is going to sink in popularity after they get mogged the way that Kamala did in that election. However, the tendency for Democratic voters to be more engaged in off general elections, special elections, and midterms seems to be holding quite well. For example, Democrats flipped the Omaha mayor's race, ending an era of Republican leadership. So they just flipped a mayor's seat in a city that it had been Republican for in literal decades. And we've already seen multiple special elections at this point with Democrats like way overperforming. So even though the polls right now show that the Democratic Party is clearly suffering from a brand problem, they are not particularly popular. In fact, I think that Republicans still have a minor edge in the general in the, what do you call it? The generic ballot, I think is what you say there. In the generic ballot, I think the Republicans still have a slight edge, but at this point, it would shock me if Democrats didn't, at least take back the House in 2026. I mean, this is all just kind of normal pendulum stuff. I mean, you're right. The parties have changed throughout the decades in the United States, for sure. The parties have changed. However, I don't see, a two-party system being the norm is more or less a function of a first past the poll way of doing elections, presidential elections. It naturally forces different interests to consolidate and coalesce and form a coalition. Otherwise, if your movement is super fractured and the other movement is super unified, you are going to lose every single election. So you can have instances where someone like Bernie Sanders, who is a registered independent, and caucus with the Dems, and that works. I'm not sure how to imagine a situation where that would be effective if there were like 20 independents or 20 people with if they formed a communist party. I just think it would ensure Republican political hegemony in this country for several decades.
Accomplish with these rallies.
The kind of moment that we're in, and also something that Trump was.
It's probably not the same. I'm low-key memeing. It's probably not the same organization. I'm sure Hassan would be aware of that.
Was really practicing, even though he doesn't believe in working class politics, they had a very focused working class strategy. And I think for a while, Democratic Party clearly wasn't effective at that, wasn't successful at that. And I think one of the things that we're here to do is to actually rally a class conscious movement to bring people together and to.
Towards what? To bring people together? You're rallying
to towards democratic socialism. So not the sort of, communist utopia that maybe this person has in mind. But obviously she's talking about building a movement that is centered around class consciousness and in their minds raising awareness of how things like wealth disparity negatively impact people's day-to-day lives. If you can educate people that a better life is possible, that better policies are possible, then you might have enough people with an appetite for single-payer healthcare that we could pass a bill like Medicare for All. And in order to do that, you have to build a movement. And in order to build a movement, you have to sort of do what AOC and Bernie are trying to do right now. I have very serious doubts that the next candidate in 2028 will be someone who is more aligned with like democratic socialism. I think it's probably more likely to be the case that whoever the nominee is in 2028 will be a more moderate candidate. They'll run on a more moderate platform. But there's a lot of time between then and now. Like we have about, 2.5 years before the next presidential election cycle begins. And so, what you're seeing is these various party players within the Democratic Party apparatus, they're going out there and they're trying to make their case. So and they're doing it in different ways. So Gavin Newsom is doing a podcast and we'll see how successful he is with that. And now we're seeing Pete Buttigieg get out there and show up in podcasts and do media appearances and have town halls in cities over the country right now. And so he's doing his best to sort of lay those seeds. And Bernie and AOC are doing this anti-oligarchy tour because they want to sort of shape the party into a more progressive direction, which is possible, but they face a lot of headwinds. That's a really difficult thing to do, I think, right now. But for Cinemarxism to be like, what are you building towards? It's like, well, they're building towards democratic socialism. That's what it is.
A class conscience movement.
Towards what?
The only reason AOC even got elected is because she appeals to libs. Why do we expect anything? Do you not remember when AOC got elected? She ran on abolishing ICE. The f are you talking about? She ran on abolishing ICE and Medicare.
Well, why do you think she moved away from that position? How does abolishing ICE poll? Let's just take a look at it. This was from 2018. This was back in 2018, almost like the peak woke era. So we would have to look at a more recent poll, but I doubt that that's gotten any better. The rallying cry from some liberals to abolish ICE isn't a likely winner this election year. A new poll finds only a quarter of Democrats support eliminating the agency that carried out Trump administration's policy separating immigrant children from their parents. So back in 2018, only a quarter of Democrats supported abolishing ICE. This is not a topic that really comes up all that much. So I'm just not seeing any recent polling, but I would be shocked if it's not down to 10%. So the idea of abolishing ICE just on paper is insanely unpopular. And we see this a lot with politicians, especially freshman politicians. They come in there, they're wide-eyed, very idealistic, oftentimes run on much more progressive platforms. And then as they get some experience in DC and they start to understand more and more about how the sausage gets made, and, they start to understand the concept of power a little bit better when they've been sitting in those seats, they moderate their position. So if AOC wants to move the party left, running on a platform of defunding the police or abolishing ICE is just a horrible way of trying to go about that. This would undoubtedly drive more people away from the Democratic Party and towards the Republican Party, because most people are going to look at that and they're going to be like, what the of course we're not going to abolish ICE. A lot of people are going to have opinions about how we should reform ICE and how we should sort of rein them in to make sure that we're not doing human rights violations. And obviously what's happening right now, it's crazy with the Trump administration, but most Americans are not going to be in favor of something like that.
Care for All and a Green New Deal. Yeah, libs hated her.
We are looking at a nation which is now oligarchic. And they don't hide it. I must give them credit for it, but, they're out there. Mr. Musk, the richest guy in the world, is running all over the place, cutting.
Wait, somebody banned you?
The needs of veterans, going after Social Security.
The erosion of civil liberties is happening all around, but in terms of attacking free speech, a fundamental principle that I think all Americans agree on. And the way that he's done this, the way that this administration has attacked free speech is by doing something that previously has only been utilized in the darkest times of American history. I'm of course talking about Mahmoud Khalil being fighting, or at least having his green card revoked for basically nothing. That the administration is all but admitted for no discernible reason other than the fact that he was the lead negotiator on the student side, the student protesters. On top of that, just like in Nazi Germany, the Trump administration is now trying to put up an academic receivership and take charge and take control over.
I'm so glad we elected her and she abolished ICE.
Different institutions within Colombia, and I feel like this is a grave mistake. Do you feel like the Democrats have?
I mean, I don't know if he's just. I mean, obviously, a single representative can't unilaterally do anything, but
any sort of interest in fighting back against this?
No, Chubby, this is wrong too, man. This is wrong. You're wrong. You don't need to fucking.
Chubby says, I think the transformation requires baby steps. When most Americans have been brainwashed into thinking free healthcare is dangerous, tyrannical communism, you have to start by pointing the problem at oligarchy, then income inequality, then changing the structural mechanisms which create it. I mean, yes. 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 I mean, I'm not a socialist, but if you were a socialist, this would be the way that you would do socialism. Like, you would have to make peace with the idea that any kind of transition into socialism would have to be something that takes place incrementally over time. There's this appetite for immediate results that I think a lot of particularly like younger people have. They don't have a lot of patience for political projects. They want what they want and they want it right now. But if you were to do socialism in this country, which I suppose is possible, like anything's possible, it would have to take place over a period of probably decades. I mean, this is not something that could be done in like 5 years or even 10 years, right?
Hold American people's we need to stop infantilizing the American working class also. People know exactly what they're going through. You're not some special gifted brained, person for recognizing this and being in leftist spaces. People can figure this out. They understand exactly what they're going through. And
well, not for nothing, but I mean, progressives got absolutely stomped in 2024, way more than moderates.
If they're given the right story and they're giving a platform to organize under that actually fights for them, they will be there for it. Most Americans are oblivious though, Brett. No, they're not, dude.
I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence. I'm not saying most Americans are stupid. I genuinely don't believe that. But most Americans are simply not engaged with politics at the level that Twitch streamers are. The level of engagement that I partake in when it comes to politics is probably in the 0.1 percentile with the amount of content and news that I consume on a daily basis. It's several hours before I go live. I'm like, I'm ingesting the news, and then I cover the news when I go live, and then I'm reading about the news before I go. I'm not saying that this makes me better than anybody else, because I'm in a dink situation. Like, I got dual income, no kids, right? Like, I got all the fucking time in the world to just swim in this shit. Most people don't. He seems to be asserting that, like, no. Americans are way more plugged in than you think, but they're not. But they're just simply not. I would be willing to bet that 60 to 70% of people, that to the extent that they engage in politics, they get most of that information from short little sound bites on TikTok, or if the podcaster that they listen to, who normally doesn't talk about politics, happens to talk about politics that particular episode. But most people are just they're thinking about their families, they're thinking about their careers. They're not thinking about this stuff very much. I mean, they're thinking about their immediate circumstances. So if they're financially stressed, if they can't afford some medical treatment, or if they're having problems with their insurance, or if they're uninsured, people think about these things. People think about inflation. They think about their bills. They think about how much gas costs, all that stuff. But they're not thinking about like challenging power structures to dismantle capitalism. They're not thinking about it in that way for the most part.
Like, no, they're not. They understand what they are going through better than you do. The story that they have been told that explains why is the problem. There is nobody
Okay, he just repeated what the guy said. Because the guy said, when most Americans have been brainwashed. And he was like, no. Stop infantilizing them. But also the story that they've been told is a lie. Okay, well, you just repeated what the guy said. That's what he's...
They're not. They understand what they are going through better than you do. The story that they have been told that explains why is the problem.
That's what the guy said.
There is nobody telling the story on the left that points the finger at class struggle. And so they don't think that because they haven't been told that
All Bernie and AOC are. And a lot of, social media pundits, right?
story. Instead, the story that they're told is that it's immigrants and trans people playing sports and, woke teachers and all of the other scapegoats that fascists always use. Fascists are always going to use these things. The answer to this is not saying that is they are ruining your lives like the Kamala did. It's saying,
boy, oh boy, I don't even know where to unpack where to begin unpacking that. What did he just said that Kamala agrees that we can blame immigrants and trans people for our problems. Excuse me, did I miss a speech? Some crazy speech that I just missed, I guess?
No, there is a group of people that is ruining your life and is the reason why your life is gradually getting worse and worse every single year. And it's the capitalist class. Those are the questions Bernie and AOC literally raised at their rallies today. I know, but where do we go from there? This is why we care about what they have to say. You think I'm here watching interviews with Tim Waltz or?
To me, it's not a failure of capitalism so much that it's a failure of government. I believe that government's role is, one of the, maybe even above the national security. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you can put anything above national security, but right below national security, right below a government's function of making sure that people are literally physically safe within that country. Right below that, I would say that the next most important function of government is to more or less fill in the gaps that capitalism has. I'm obviously not a libertarian who thinks that, we should deregulate everything and let the free market guide everything. I believe that government can step in and levy taxes and redistribute wealth and provide people for their basic needs, education, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera.
Or Kamala, I don't give a what anybody else says. I care about what they say because they do speak this language well. They're not channeling this anger and this momentum that they're building into anything.
They're going to go after a lot of other people, including but not limited to the French researcher, according to
I guess the question I would ask him is what are you doing to channel this energy into something? How are you personally channeling this energy into, what is your idea of what power is? Do you feel like you're gaining power recently?
That was denied entry into the country because they looked through his phone and they found out that he had criticized Trump's elimination of grants.
I think there actually is support for it because of the free speech grounds, because when ICE came to try to pick up in Mahmoud Khalil's.
Guys, this Vyvanse is for sure impacting me. 1000%. My thoughts feel so much more organized. I am not stuttering and tripping over my words. I am fully focused on what I'm watching. This is crazy. Is this how normal people's brains work? 24/7? Because this is new to me. Normally I'm half looking at Twitter and half-ass looking at the chat and blah, blah, blah.
This case, when they tried to pick him up, they offered no warrant. These were unmarked people. There were no charges. And so you have...
I was so focused on chat that I forgot to switch the scene. Both chats. So, what's up, Courtney?
Senator Durbin and Senate Judiciary, right, Bernie?
Yep.
Oh, we are locked in.
I believe they released a statement talking about how they want to move on this. But I also think that it goes without saying that there is still profound money and interest that remains dedicated on both sides of the aisle in trying to marginalize and also conflate criticism of Israel as anti-Semitism.
Right.
And we have to be very aware of that too.
We have very limited time.
It's you just described the Democratic Party. She just described the Democratic Party. And then she's still we shouldn't break from it. It was an okay answer. I don't have many issues with the words that she said. Okay, Days Nova is saying something I'm seeing a lot of people say. I do think a new party is necessary, but I understand why they're hesitant. They have to utterly destroy the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they could split the non-Republican vote, and Republicans will dominate everywhere.
Of course, yeah.
I understand that fear.
Yeah.
Come here close.
Okay.
Republicans are dominating everywhere right now.
Okay. This ties into what I was talking about before, which an essential part of the leftist narrative is that things right now are already maximally bad. And therefore, we have already hit rock bottom. And so we have nothing left to lose. Therefore, we should try to torch the Democratic Party entirely and build a new communist party that will somehow, or Marxist, whatever he feels comfortable identifying as, and then somehow immediately be competitive with the Republican Party. This idea that Republicans are dominating right now, that's not even true. Donald Trump had a pretty good election by modern standards. I mean, that was a very comfortable electoral college win. But as recently as 1984, we had a 49 state landslide. Barack Obama won by an extremely comfortable margin, and the Democratic Party secured a veto-proof majority in the Senate and a very comfortable majority in the House. That was dominating. In 2016, I would say that was a pretty dominant result for the Republican Party. Not only did they secure the presidency and the Senate, what was their majority in the Senate in 2016? Was it 5 seats? In 2017, they had a 54 seat majority. So even then, that's not like dominant, right? Like you can't really do you can't do a lot. Like you can't do as much if you don't have a veto proof majority in this country. And it used to be more common that we would have that kind of a situation. And on top of that, there was more bipartisanship for decades. And so even if you had Ronald Reagan as president, you had Democratic Congress that would deliver his legislation goals. And so the parties would work together. But this idea that the Republicans right now are dominating is just not. They lost seats in 2024. They lost House seats. They almost lost the House. They have functionally right now a 3-seat majority in the House. And they have, what's their majority in the Senate, guys? Is it 2 seats or is it 3 seats? I think they have a 3-seat majority in the Senate. That's not a lot. And so we're seeing the consequence of those close margins right now as the Republican Party struggles to form a consensus about what their reconciliation package should look like. And now you're seeing prominent senators like Josh Hawley, and somebody else came forward today in the Senate side and said that the current House bill is unacceptable. And so it's not even clear to me that they are going to be able to pass their reconciliation bill. Like they have a tough struggle right now. Do you know what that would look like if they had a supermajority in the Senate? Like an actual supermajority in the Senate? If you destroyed the Democratic Party, you would give Republicans a 50-seat slide. You would give them like an 80-seat majority in the Senate. You would give them like a majority of like 150 seats in the House. And at that point, do you know what you can do? You can pass not only legislation, whatever legislation you want. I mean, let it rain. Ban abortion, ban porn, ban birth control, ban whatever. So they can not only do legislation, they can pass constitutional amendments if they have those kinds of majorities. So his thinking that we are already at rock bottom, I think is really myopic. I think this guy struggles with imagination. He cannot seem to conceive of a possibility that the current landscape could get so much worse, because he's already they're already dominating. It couldn't get any worse. It's just crazy to me.
They're dominating everywhere right now.
It's not true.
The Democrats have not demonstrated that they're willing to change. They haven't demonstrated that there's any.
I mean, Biden literally did demonstrate that he was willing to change, and it didn't matter. It didn't fucking matter.
New strategy. In fact, they've demonstrated that they're going to collaborate with the fascists. You're.
I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, I voted against Donald Trump. I don't know how he voted, but I voted against Donald Trump. Like, I voted against the fascists. Like, I tried in my own way, you know, to try to make sure that Donald Trump could not win in 2024. Like, I actually made effort to stop that. But
worst case scenario of this hypothetical is the reality that we are living in. Okay, genuine question. Do you think
he genuinely couldn't imagine it getting worse? Really? You can't imagine this country if it turned into like the Third Reich? You really couldn't imagine that? You couldn't imagine, like, there are so many examples across so many countries of despots, tyrants, authoritarians ascending to power in those countries and then turning that country into a dystopian, Orwellian nightmare. And he thinks that we're already there now, like we're in 1984 right now. Like, it literally could not get worse.
A new party would take a ton of time that we can't afford right now. What do you mean we can't? Like, what does that mean? We can't afford not to take the time. We can't afford not to do this. Like, we need everybody, all hands on deck. Like, we do not need, you know what we can't afford? You know what we can't afford is a fucking two politicians who are supposed to be the leadership of the left going on stage and saying the exact same speeches that we've heard for the last 9 years, coming from the same people and funneling the righteous rage that people are feeling right now into the Democratic Party. That's what we can't fucking afford. You know? Yeah, that's what we can't afford, if we're being honest. Of course it's going to take a long time and it's going to be hard, but we should have started it fucking, yes, we should have started.
I just, you know, does he have no sense of like how much more difficult it would be if, like, let's actually play the tape out and imagine a Nazi party type thing happening in the United States. There's one person who is vested supreme authority, you know, they dissolve the Congress, and now we have just one fascist dictator who is governing the entire country by his own whims. Does he not understand how much more difficult it would be to build a movement if they're fucking literally just throwing people in jail for opposing the administration? Everyone. Right now, I can go basically on any street corner in America, and I can hold up a sign that says Donald Trump is a fucking racist. And I'm not going to get arrested. I might get some dirty looks. I might get some dirty looks. I might have some people pull over and try to punch me or whatever. Obviously, I would dominate them physically, and so that wouldn't happen. But I wouldn't be thrown in jail. Like, I wouldn't be overly concerned about being thrown in jail. If we imagine an actual fascist takeover in this country, then they would throw my ass into a fucking gulag, maybe torture me, maybe kill me. I mean, we have how many examples of tyrannical governments that exist currently in the world? If I go on a street corner in Hamas and hold up a sign that says, or in Gaza, and hold up a sign that says, I don't like Hamas, they will fucking torture me and potentially kill me. That's pretty, you know, once you're at that level, it's like, it's, you know, it's hard to imagine the bottom dropping out further. Although in the case of like Hamas, I'm sure that could get even worse. But he's talking about like, it's going to be harder to build this socialist political project if we wait. We have to do it right now. Clean break from the Democratic Party. It has to happen right now because we're already in the shit, and it's just going to be so much harder if we don't act now. It's like, well, I think it's going to be harder if they start fucking jailing dissidents, which can happen. Again, we are not better than the Germans in 1930. We're not like constitutionally better people.
Started it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, there's no time like now. Like, it's better now than never, dude. You know, like if I don't know, dude, this shit's driving me insane. It's driving me insane. Everybody is acting like we're not fucking in the moment, and the moment is past, bro. The moment's past, is gone. Now is better than never, and we're just floundering. Like, there is no solution other than like, yeah, building a working class party. Building working class power, having a revolution. But like, here's
boy, listen, when I imagine a revolution in America in 2025, my imaginings horrify me because it would not be a leftist revolution. I promise you, if a revolution happens in America and we just toss the Constitution, you know, we just completely give up on being a republic. If that happens, it is going to be MAGA. They are going to be the ones doing a revolution. It's going to be like these 3%ers and like, it's going to be them. It's not going to be like your local chapter of the DSA. It's not going to happen.
Here's the alternative vision, right? Is that like, you know, we're going to watch what happened today, but I just want you to keep this internal like vision of this moment in your mind of, you know, they come out and they say, here, we're unveiling this new party. Here's what it looks.
Bro, a third of the Teamsters, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, a third of the Teamsters supported Trump. And Joe Biden literally saved their pension program. He saved their pension program. Their pension was so fucked that Teamsters members that had retired were looking at coming out of retirement because their retirement had dried up. And Joe Biden, Big Dick Joe Biden, with a tiny majority to work with in the Senate, 50-50, literally the slimmest majority you could possibly work with, single-handedly saved Teamsters pensions. And 30% of them supported Trump.
Looks like. Here's the name. It's the Labor Party. Here's Chris Smalls. He's working with us. Here's Sean Fain. He's working with us. We've got these unions behind us. Go build it in your towns. And if you're a progressive who identifies with what we represent, then drop your Democratic Party alignment right now and join us immediately.
Oh boy. Well, needless to say, we have very different opinions about how to achieve political power and then what to do with political power. I mean, wow. Okay.